If people get defensive around you, that's not a flaw in your personality. That's proof of something most people will never understand about themselves. Your presence is triggering a psychological response they can't control, and they'll blame you for it. If you're an INFJ, you felt this countless times. You walk into a room and suddenly everyone's energy shifts. They start explaining themselves before you even ask a question. They justify decisions you never challenged. They build walls around conversations that were once wonderful moments. Here's the thing, trust me. This reaction isn't random, and it's definitely not your fault. There's a specific psychological mechanism at work here. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why your natural way of being triggers such intense defensive responses in others. We're going to explore 3 key reasons this happens first. How your mind works like a mirror, reflecting truths people don't want to see. Second, how your empathy becomes a weapon that exposes emotional lies. And third, how your quiet presence alone carries an authority that makes others feel evaluated. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you are looking to achieve a deeper understanding of yourself and your personality type, click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. The mirror effect. How INFJs reflect hidden truths. Your dominant function, intuition, operates like a psychological scanner. While most people focus on what someone is saying or doing, you're automatically picking up on why they're saying it. You see the motivation behind the action, the fear behind the confidence, the insecurity behind the bravado. Most people live with carefully constructed versions of themselves. They've built these personas over the years. The successful professional who's actually terrified of failure. The confident extrovert who's desperately seeking approval. The independent person who's afraid of being abandoned. These aren't conscious lies. People genuinely believe their own presentations most of the time. But you see through to the core truth underneath. Your intuition doesn't buy the performance. Here's where it gets uncomfortable for them. Even though you're not saying anything, your energy reflects what you're seeing. It's like holding up a mirror to their hidden self. Suddenly, they sense that someone in the room knows what they're trying so hard to hide. Watch what happens next. They start over-explaining simple decisions. A coworker mentions they're leaving early, then launches into a detailed justification for a doctor's appointment, a sick relative, and how they'll make up the time. You never asked. You don't care. But they felt compelled to defend themselves because they sensed you could see their real reason. Or someone tells a story about their weekend and then keeps adding details and clarifications. They're not talking to you. They're talking to the part of themselves that knows you can see the gaps in their narrative. This creates an immediate power imbalance. They're operating from a place of hiding and performing, while you're operating from a place of seeing and knowing. Even if you never use this insight against them, the mere fact that you have it makes them feel exposed. The really fascinating part is that this happens completely unconsciously. They don't think to themselves, "Oh, this person can see my insecurities." Instead, they just feel uncomfortable around you. They feel like they need to be extra careful about what they say and do. Your comfort with seeing people as they really are becomes their discomfort with being seen as they really are. You're not trying to make them defensive. You're just existing in your natural state of awareness. But to someone who's invested in maintaining their mask, your awareness feels like a threat. This is why people often describe INFJs as intimidating, even when you're being perfectly pleasant. It's not your behavior that intimidates them. It's your perception. You see what they work so hard to keep hidden, and that recognition happens on a level deeper than conscious thought. The empathy weapon. When feeling others becomes threatening. Your secondary function, feeling, doesn't just read emotion, it also shapes it. It mirrors them back in ways that make people profoundly uncomfortable. Most people think empathy is safe. They expect sympathy, which is basically someone saying, "Oh, that sounds hard," or "I'm sorry you're going through that." Sympathy keeps things on the surface. But your empathy is different. You don't just acknowledge their emotions, you actually feel them. And then you respond to what they're really feeling, not what they're trying to project. This is where things get threatening for them. Imagine someone comes to work acting upbeat and energetic. They're telling everyone about their fantastic weekend, their grand plans, their positive outlook. But underneath, you can feel their anxiety, their fear, their deep sadness about something they're not sharing. Most people will respond to the performance. They'll match the upbeat energy and ask about the weekend plans. But you might respond to the genuine emotion underneath. You could ask if they're okay. Maybe you just give them a look that says, "I see you're struggling." Suddenly, they realize their emotional mask isn't working on you. You're not buying the performance. You're responding to their authentic emotional state. And that feels like being caught in a lie. Here's what makes this so uncomfortable for them. They've probably spent years perfecting this emotional presentation. They've learned to hide their pain behind positivity, their fear behind confidence, their loneliness behind social energy. And it works on most people. But you're reflecting their genuine emotions, which creates cognitive dissonance. They're working hard to project one thing, and you're responding to another. It makes them question whether their mask is as good as they thought it was, whether other people can see through it too. This is why people often say INFJs make them feel exposed or naked. You're not trying to strip away their defenses. You're just naturally responding to emotional authenticity rather than emotional performance. But to someone who lives behind emotional walls, this feels like an attack. They start getting defensive about feelings they haven't even expressed. They might say things like, "I'm fine. I don't know why everyone thinks something's wrong." Or they'll overcompensate by being even more aggressively positive. They're defending against emotions you never accuse them of having. The really challenging part is that your emotional responses are usually accurate. When you sense someone's sadness behind their smile, you're typically right. When you feel their anger beneath their politeness, you're picking up on something real. But they're not ready to acknowledge these feelings, even to themselves. So your empathy becomes a mirror for their emotional dishonesty. Not dishonesty toward others, but dishonesty toward themselves. You're reflecting parts of their emotional reality they're not prepared to face. And that makes you feel dangerous to be around. The silent authority, how presence alone triggers defense. There's something about the way INFJs carry themselves that others pick up on immediately. You don't need to speak or act. Your mere presence communicates a quiet knowing that makes people feel they're being evaluated. Part of this comes from how you process information. While others are talking and reacting, you're often listening and analyzing internally. You take in data, process it through your intuition, and reach conclusions before you speak. This gives you an air of having already figured things out. People can sense this. They feel like you've already assessed the situation, understood the dynamics, and formed opinions while they're still trying to figure out what's happening. Even if you haven't reached any conclusions, your natural processing style makes it seem like you have. Your comfort with silence adds to this effect. Most people feel compelled to fill quiet moments with words, but you're perfectly comfortable observing and thinking. To others, this silence feels loaded. They interpret it as judgment, even when you're simply taking time to understand. They start filling the silence with explanations, justifications, and nervous chatter. They're trying to influence what they think you're thinking about them. But the more they talk, the more they reveal about their insecurities, and the more validated your quiet observations become. There's also your pattern recognition ability. You naturally see connections and themes that others miss. You notice when someone's behavior doesn't match their words, when their current story contradicts something they said before, or when their emotional reactions seem disproportionate to the situation. This makes people feel predictable and transparent around you. They sense that you're seeing patterns in their behavior that they're not even aware of. It's like being around someone who can read your psychological blueprint. The intimidation factor comes from your self-contained nature. You don't need validation or approval from others. You're not performing for anyone's benefit. You're just being authentically yourself. To people who are constantly seeking external validation, this independence feels threatening. They're used to influencing how others see them through charm, performance, or manipulation. But these tactics don't work on you. You see through the performance to the person underneath, and that makes them feel powerless in a way they're not used to. This defensive reaction isn't a flaw in your personality. It's actually confirmation of your rare psychological insight. When people get defensive around you, they're responding to your ability to see what they work hard to hide from themselves and others. The power isn't in making people uncomfortable. It's in the depths of perception that naturally triggers their defense mechanisms. Embrace this as validation of your unique ability to see beyond surface presentations. If this resonated with you, check out our other videos on INFJ psychology and subscribe for more insights into how your mind works. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos, where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality.